Hello and welcome to Education at SSBJ online video tutorials. We were in chapter number 14 of class 8th CBSE Chemical Effects of Electric Current. This is of class 8th CBSE, right? So far what we have studied is meaning of charge, that is electric charge, right? So we have understood what is charge and we have understood flow of charge is electric current, right? Now we have also seen that where are the charges? They are inside the atom. Atom contains positive charge such as proton, and they are positive, and electrons are negatively charged, whereas neutrons are neutral, right? So these are the charges, and charges are a kind of force experienced by these particles, right? And then we have seen that metals have free electrons. Metals have free electrons. And what are free electrons? Those electrons, you can make them to move, right? They are a bit far away from the nucleus. Please refer the previous videos. And that makes metals good conductors of electricity, right? And we have also seen that liquids also conduct electricity. Liquids are also good conductors of electricity, right? And we have seen how the electrolysis of water is being done, right? How can we split H2O, that is water, into hydrogen and oxygen in the previous video. We shall again start with the same content so that we can connect that to the rest of the content effectively, right? So what we have done for the electrolysis of water is we have made an arrangement as shown in the figure now. This container is of plastic or glass, right? And why it is plastic or glass? They are bad conductors of or insulators of electricity. They don't allow the electricity to flow. And why should they be used here? Because we are going to allow electricity through these rods. So this can be either metal rods or carbon rods. Carbon is a good conductor of electricity. After that, we have to pour some water here, and that water shouldn't be a pure water. That water should be, a bit of salt added or an acid added water, right? Which makes this a good conductor of electricity. So water becomes a good conductor of electricity when bit of salt or pinch of acid is added into it. Then we have taken two test tubes, and then we have covered these carbon rods in the figure shown, and arranged the entire arrangement and connected a battery to these rods. For example, plus is the positive terminal of this battery, and negative terminal of this battery are connected to these rods so that the electricity flows inside. And we have learnt that the H2O molecule splits into H plus, and you can write this way, H plus and O minus ions. What are they called? Ions. And what are ions? They are charged atoms, right? And how they have become charged atoms? H loses electron, right? The electron goes out of H and it becomes positively charged. Oxygen receives electron and it becomes negatively charged. So this happens when the current is made to go into this water, right? And so you find H plus and O minus split into this liquid. Earlier it was H2O. Now because of electricity they are split into H plus and O minus. Now the terminal, negative terminal, this is negative electrode and this rod is positive electrode. So what happens? Unlike charges attract, so H will be attracted towards the negative, and in the form of bubble it starts initially and then goes into the empty space of the tube, and hydrogen will be collected here. In the same way, minus particle ion, that is negative ion, is oxygen. It goes to the positive electrode and oxygen is collected here. Thus we have brought a chemical change in water, and that is due to electric current, right? So therefore this demonstration is a chemical effect of electricity, right? Important point to be noted here is when we do this experiment, remember that we are allowing a direct current to flow through the water, right? Not pure water, impure water we can say. Direct current, we can call it as DC current, and DC current is that current which we receive out of the battery. Never to attempt this experiment by using AC current, which is a current which we use at home, right? That is alternate current. AC current will be quite dangerous when we directly allow it into the water, and which will not give any effect of electrolysis here. So point to be noted, right? In case, suppose if we take a container and instead of water, if we use some other solution, for example copper sulphate solution, copper sulphate, together I should have written, there is no space that side, so copper sulphate, sometimes they use different spelling here. The symbol of copper sulphate is formula of copper sulphate is CuSO4. Look at this properly. So it's a combination of copper as well as sulphate. Sulphate is SO4 and copper is Cu. So let us take a copper sulphate solution. And how can you get a copper sulphate solution? Copper sulphate is available in the form of powder, powder is there. This is a copper sulphate. So what you have to do is add some water into it and it becomes a copper sulphate solution, right? The moment you add, let's say it's a copper sulphate solution, CuSO4, the moment you add a bit of water here, H2O, or add copper sulphate into water, both it becomes a copper sulphate solution, then you will find copper is split from sulphate. So you will find more of copper plus and sulphate minus ions generated there. So remember this, right? Initially it was together copper sulphate. The moment water is allowed inside, then copper is separated and SO4 is also separated out of this copper sulphate, and they give and take electrons, and copper becomes positively charged and sulphate becomes negatively charged, right? So this is what the status of this copper sulphate solution when water is added into it. Now at this moment, if you take a battery and then put these terminals into a copper sulphate solution, what is going to happen then? You know that this is copper sulphate and bit of water is added into it, which makes copper sulphate to break into copper and sulphate ions. So you will find more of copper sulphate and copper plus and sulphate minus ions, positive and negative ions. Now look at this battery part of it. Since it's red color, it's a positive terminal. This is a negative terminal. So positive terminal has gone to this rod, this metal rod. So this becomes a positive electrode. So this you can write as a positive electrode. And this, since it is connected to negative terminal, this becomes negative electrode. That means negative charges are there on this, and on this positive charges are there, both ends, down and on the top, right? Now solution also contains a positive charge, right? Positive charge and negative charge. We have already studied that unlike charges attract. And what are unlike charges here? We have in the solution, we have ions, right? And what are those ions? They are positive, that is copper one, copper ion, and sulphate ion is a negative ion. And also we have charges on the rod, top and bottom. This is a positive charge, this is the negative charge. So unlike charges attract. This we know already, and therefore copper plus plus, all those which are there in this solution. I have shown only one copper plus plus here just for our reference. So all copper plus plus will start moving towards a negative, right? And all SO4 minus minus will start moving towards positive, because unlike charge attract. So after some time you will find more of copper plus plus are all attracted towards a negative charge rod, that is negative electrode, and all that SO4 minus minus will be near or attracted on the positively charged electrode. Now what has happened here? We have made a copper ions to move towards a negative electrode, right? We have made copper ions to move towards negative electrode. Please remember this point, right? Suppose if you take a copper as a positive electrode, right? Let us take copper as positive electrode. So we shall replace this by copper, right? And then some other metal, let's say, we'll take brass, right? So we have taken a brass here and we have taken a copper here. You can take other metal also in this place, right? Now what happens? As usual, if you allow the current to pass through this copper sulphate solution, there are many Cu++ and SO4 here, and we already know this rod is positively charged and this brass rod will be negatively charged. Why? Because it is connected to negative terminal of the battery, whereas copper is connected to the positive terminal of the battery. So according to properties of charges, unlike charges attract. So the copper which is there in the copper sulphate solution will start moving towards brass, okay? And you will find all these copper plus plus will sit on this brass. There will be a kind of copper painting over it, right? And because of that, the copper which is there here in the solution will be getting over, right? And that is replaced by this copper rod, and this copper rod will start becoming thinner and thinner because it gives to this liquid copper plus plus. In the way we can say it start dissolving into the liquid. And why this has started dissolving into the liquid? Because all that copper plus plus which was already there has gone and deposited on this plate. So what we have achieved here is we have made a copper ions to go and sit here on this brass plate, and after some time you will find a fine coating of a copper over this. Okay, so this becomes a copper coated, right? So what did we do? We have deposited a copper, one metal, that is copper, over another metal or an alloy by using electricity, right? So we have once again we have deposited a metal, one metal over another metal by using electricity. So deposition of a metal over another metal by using electricity is known as electroplating. This is very important concept. And what kind of electroplating we have done? We have deposited copper over a brass, right? So this is electroplating. In specific it is called copper plating because we have used a copper. In place of this copper, if you use some other metal, you know, that metal will be deposited on this metal. Point to be noted that the metal on which you want deposition of other metal is supposed to be connected to the negative terminal of the battery, remember, because this metal is moving towards the metal rod which is connected to the negative terminal. In the next video tutorial we shall discuss on the topic the uses of electroplating. Thank you.